First of all, welcome for this video series with Cosmos Hub. We'll be exploring a few topics about building on Cosmos. How's the experience so far in terms of exploring it, and what your project has been up to.
Yeah.
So, do you want to start with giving us a quick intro about you and what are you building?
Sure. So hi, I'm Siddarth. I'm the co-founder of Comdex. Comdex is a DeFi and RWA focused layer 1, effectively trying to tap into the zone which allows you to have the intersection of DeFi and RWAs, essentially allowing DeFi liquidity to interact with RWAs and vice versa.
So we'll jump into this segment about Cosmos Hub. How, what was your intro to Cosmos ecosystem? How did you explore it? How did you come across it?
So I first came across the word Cosmos back in 2017, 2018. At the time, it was most popular for the ICO, which kind of sold out, and I was like, wow, this is a interesting thing. Of course, I don't come from a technical background, but I had a few friends who were big fans of what was being built with Cosmos, especially with the vision of Internet of Money, interoperability across multiple chains, and the whole idea that the future is multi-chain effectively. That appealed to me, and by the time I got to a point where I decided I wanted to build something in this space, I think the core ideology of having a fully customizable and sovereign layer 1, which you can kind of purpose build for whatever you're building, but still be interconnected to the larger ecosystem of blockchains as a whole, that really appealed to me, and that's kind of how I chose to build in Cosmos.
Yeah, so do you want to tell us a little bit about Comdex? What is the problem that it's trying to solve, especially in the blockchain and Web3 space, and why was Cosmos the chain to launch it on, and versus other ecosystems or chains that are there?
Sure. So, when you look at the RWA space, I'll kind of look at it two ways. So when you look at the RWA side of things, it's a highly fragmented ecosystem. The fragmentation is largely a result of, a lack of trust, which kind of generally exists between two transacting counterparties. And the result is that you end up with a lot of intermediaries whose entire duty is to kind of mitigate this lack of trust. But each intermediary comes with its own set of hurdles, its own set of costs, which is kind of like the core problem statement. On the other side, you have decentralized world where you have DeFi, everything is trustless. You kind of just trust the smart contract, and code is law, and everything works as per what the smart contracts are defined to be. So an intersection of these two kind of universes is what I think fits for an ideal use case, because in the real world asset side of things, there's trillions of dollars of liquidity. There's so many different assets that you can tokenize and create financing around. But if you try to do it staying within that realm, you're kind of limited by the limitations of whatever that realm has. Whereas if you just create a Rails for smoothly or seamlessly connecting these two realms together, you have the capability to move RWA assets like they're crypto and have them interact with the broader DeFi landscape as well. Conversely, for a DeFi user as well, it allows you an opportunity to kind of diversify your exposure beyond chains. So you could be exposed to assets on chain and yields from different sources on chain, but when you are able to connect the two seamlessly, you could still be holding stables, deploying it in a vault, which let's say produces yield from, real estate, like rental yield. So that's effectively what we're tapping into with Comdex.
So basically, it was about introducing what project does and why you chose Cosmos to do it.
So yeah, at the time when we started building, one of the key things about Cosmos that resonated with us was the ideology of having your own sovereign chain, which is fully customizable and purpose built. But at the same time, it remains interoperable with all of the other chains that follow the same kind of tech stack. So what that allows you to do is really optimize for the use case you're building for, but still have access to liquidity from all these other chains that you are connected to. So that really appealed to us, and given the options we had at the time that we started building, we did kind of recognize a lot of scalability constraints that would come with building in other ecosystems at the time. But with Cosmos, you kind of really had the option of building it for whatever scale you foresee your app to have. And that was kind of, I think, the core reason why we chose to build in Cosmos, and it's definitely been a good decision at the time since then.
I'm pretty sure you speak to a lot of builders, developers in the space as well. And since you launched your own project a few years ago, why do you think Cosmos is sort of attracting these builders and developers also in the space? What is something that uniquely offers that other chains or ecosystem doesn't?
So personally, I'm a big fan of IBC. Multiple different things about it, right? First of all, crypto kind of has a way of notoriously being famous for nasty reasons, which is you hear bridge hack after bridge hack and running into hundreds of millions of dollars. But if you look at IBC as a tech, it has actually managed to serve this ecosystem so well for so many years, processing countless transactions per second, and all doing so seamlessly without any kind of lapse in security until now. So that itself is I think a huge superpower for anyone who's building in crypto in general to have access to this technology. And then secondly, I do firmly believe that, as and when we see kind of more and more builders enter the space and kind of go through the life cycle of being a builder, you kind of reach that stage when you realize, even in your own app, let's say you're building an app, you reach a certain stage of adoption when you start to realize that you can now become an app chain because you have that adoption, and you can customize your chain, or you can purpose build your chain to truly suit your use case to the best of its capacity, and then still again not lose your interoperability with the rest of the ecosystem. So I think IBC is really a driving factor for getting a lot of new developer talent into the ecosystem.
We're going to jump into this next set of questions. It's about like ICS, governance, some fun apps that So I mean, what are few tools, apps, or even platforms or chains that that you really enjoy using in Cosmos?
I always say this, I think I'm the number one fan of Osmosis when it comes to a DEX experience. Across every chain I've ever used, I think the experience of using Osmosis has been unmatched. I'm also a very big fan of Kepler. I think it's kind of like an underrated opinion, but I think Kepler is a very superior wallet to what people give it credit for. Just for the task it has at hand of handling so many different chains, as managing your assets across these chains, allowing you to swap and also IBC route assets between chains. I think it's like a fabulous job. Special mention to Leap Wallet as well. I'm like slowly getting pilled on the Leap Wallet as well. So I think we have some very talented teams on wallet and DEX front especially. So yeah, those are the ones I enjoy using the most.
Do you think, first of all, I want to know about what are your thoughts on interchain security, because we've had I think 4 chains so far that have adopted. Crypto Dungeon being mid process, they're almost done with their ICS adoption of sorts. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's something that will bring a lot of new projects and make on Cosmos and make launching your chain, your own sovereign chain, super easy?
I definitely think so, because the core kind of product offering from an interchain security standpoint is the security that you inherit from the hub. If you're a project that's kind of at the early stages of your life cycle, and you probably don't have the level of economic security at this stage to be able to secure, let's say, the liquidity on your chain, something like an ICS is truly the solution for you, because you're able to maintain your sovereignty, you're able to create a purpose-built chain, have everything customized for what you really want, but at the same time you inherit and rent security from the hub. So you're effectively a startup that has the economic security of a massive unicorn or even beyond. So I think that's truly a great thing about ICS that would make it like an ideal setup to launch for any new product that's launching as well.
I mean, we have also great momentum building up for Hydro, which is the liquidity bidding plus governance mechanism. I think a straight use case of that is how DeFi projects can use it, because it needs a lot of liquidity and so what do you think about that, especially because you are building a DeFi project as well? What do you think about its prospect over coming 1 or 2 years in terms of onboarding, in terms of this express governance mechanism that is there?
I think similar initiatives have existed in other ecosystems, but what sets it apart in terms of the Cosmos context of things is I think Cosmos is a highly governance literate ecosystem. I feel the level of involvement of the community and education levels of the community with regards to governance in Cosmos is probably higher than most others that I personally know. Which makes it ideal for creating a governance-based liquidity management system in a sense, because you can be assured that firstly the outcomes that come out of it are truly a result of consensus of the majority, but also secondly that this majority is a very educated bunch of people who are making what you can assume to be the right set of decisions. So I think in many ways it's the intersection of the best of both worlds for having governance and liquidity work together that way.
We'll jump into the rapid fire bit.
Yeah.
Right. So ATOM is a token, sell or compound?
Compound.
Okay. Why do you think cosmonauts should hold on to ATOM or hold some ATOM?
Because what is dead shall never die.
Name one challenge that is facing Cosmos Hub.
A challenge that's facing Cosmos Hub, I think, is momentum. It's we just need some momentum.
Who do you think should be the CEO of Cosmos?
This is a good question. I think it might be a very popular answer. I don't know what others are saying, but I think Carter is a good candidate.
Which upcoming consumer chain are you excited about the most?
Comdex.
Okay, is Comdex planning to use?
Yes.
How did you come across the decision of thinking of adapting interchain security and like going this route?
So, as discussed, like we're in the RWA domain of things. RWAs are typically high value assets that are on chain. One of the key concerns that ever comes up when you deal with institutions or when you try to get real world assets on chain and then have them handled by institutions and moved around on chains by institution is the economic security of the chain that they're dealing with. With ICS, you can continue to be your own chain, as I said earlier, but inherit the security of a much larger kind of system. Yeah. Which inspires naturally some confidence in the institutions that you're dealing with as well. So they feel more comfortable working with you when they know that you have the economic security of ATOM backing the product that you're building on top. So that's effectively why we've chosen to go that way, because we foresee a future where the size of the real world assets that we onboard keeps increasing as well. And when it reaches a certain point, you want the chain to be able to secure it in an adequate way.
Do you think being like a growing number of consumer chains, especially Comdex becoming an ICS, will also make cross-chain collaboration very easier also?
I think so, because at a certain level, once you're an ICS chain or a consumer chain, you have your interests aligned directly with the hub. And the more chains that become consumer chains naturally have their interests aligned with the hub. So it's like a friend's friend is a friend kind of concept. So you end up having a lot of these chains that have a singular alignment on, propelling the prospects of this singular thing called the hub. So naturally, I think the outcome has to be a lot more collaboration between these chains to kind of propel the hub forward.
It'll be like a credibility upgrade for chains associated with ICS. What was your first token that you got in crypto and how did you get it?
First token I got in crypto, I don't think it was Bitcoin. I really can't remember. It's probably some shitcoin that's now doesn't exist because it was I was trading like one of those people who just gets advice from friends and doesn't do any research and then just jumps in. Don't trade like that, but that's how I got in. But it was I think my second token was definitely Bitcoin, that I know for sure, but the first one was some unheard of coin.
What are your go-to tools in terms of like as a growth metric that can be used to say measure the progress of Cosmos ecosystem, like the progress it has made so far?
I would say there's a few of them. Like active developers is one good metric, always indicative of the activities that's happening across. Active IBC transactions is another great one because it just kind of indicates the health of the ecosystem as more and more people use it. And then of course active users is a very standard metric for measuring how many people are actively engaging with any of the protocols that are built here.
Do you want to give us like a guess of how many zones that are there on Cosmos Hub as of as mapped on map of zones as of today?
115.
That's close. It's 91.
Oh, not close then.
A lot of responses where people like sort of overestimate. I'm pretty sure there are like more, but they're like not mapped on as of map, because of map of zones. Like one project that you think is a dark horse of Cosmos.
Project that's a dark horse of Cosmos. I think there's a couple of them, honestly. Like I definitely think Shade Protocol is one of those because I've known the guys for quite some time. I had many interactions one-on-one with Carter and I'm very bullish on what they're doing. I think OmniFlix guys, I've known you guys for some time as well. Like I know Sisla, Daya from way back in the day and they've been going at it for a very long time. So I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be in the running. Yeah, I think that's my top two.
Any catchphrase of sorts for people to build on Atom?
IBC is a superpower.
Okay, that's a great.